During the Cold War, it was often portrayed as a standoff between two nearly unified camps, each competing for control of the world. On one side, the democratic capitalist nations, and on the other, the communist bloc. And while it's true that the countries within each side didn't always get along, actual wars between members of the same bloc were pretty rare. One major exception was when communist Vietnam launched a full-on invasion of its fellow communist neighbor, Cambodia, even though Cambodia had supported Vietnam during its war with the United States. So what led to this? Why did Vietnam invade its neighbor, its former ally and partner in revolution? And what exactly was Vietnam trying to achieve? As you'll know, Vietnam spent most of the 1960s split into two parts: the North, which was communist, and the South, which was aligned with the West. These two regions were meant to stay separate, but before long, conflict broke out. America got involved, and what followed became known as the Vietnam War. At the same time, Cambodia, which borders Vietnam, was going through a civil war of its own. Both the North Vietnamese and Cambodian communists gave each other help when they could. Eventually, North Vietnam defeated the South, as the Americans were withdrawing, and the country was reunified under communist rule. Roughly 2 weeks before North Vietnam's final victory, Pol Pot overthrew the Khmer Republic in Cambodia and established a communist regime. He renamed the country Democratic Kampuchea, though it's better known today for its government, the Khmer Rouge. At first, both of these new communist governments congratulated each other on their success, and roughly 4 seconds later, went back to hating each other. Why? There were two key reasons behind the hostility. The first was rooted in history. Vietnam had invaded and ruled over Cambodia in the past, and Cambodians hadn't forgotten. Even during the anti-French resistance movement, Vietnamese forces had dominated the efforts, which left lingering resentment. The second reason had to do with Cold War dynamics. As you'll know, China and the Soviet Union had a major split. Vietnam had received most of its support from the USSR during the war, while the Khmer Rouge was mainly backed by China. That left both sides afraid that the other might try to take them over if tensions boiled over. So, once Pol Pot came to power, he set out to completely remake Cambodian society. That meant launching a massive purge against anyone who might challenge his rule or communist ideology. And when I say anyone, I mean former government and military officials, religious groups, ethnic minorities, you name it. This campaign later became known as the Cambodian Genocide. Over the course of 4 years, it wiped out about a quarter of the entire population of Cambodia as it existed before Pol Pot. As part of this purge, and to boost his standing with the public, Pol Pot called on Cambodians to rise up against the Vietnamese, claiming that they were preparing to conquer the country. By 1978, with China's backing, Cambodia's military had grown stronger, strong enough, at least in their view, to launch cross-border attacks into Vietnam. The goal was to intimidate the Vietnamese into backing off, and, to the shock of absolutely no one but Pol Pot, this plan failed. Rather than take responsibility for attacking a much stronger country, Pol Pot blamed the failure on betrayal, and so he launched yet another purge. This time within his own military and government. Some of the people he targeted fled across the border into Vietnam. Before long, their new hosts, with a far superior army, launched an invasion to take out Pol Pot. The reason being, they wanted to set up a neighboring government that was friendlier and a whole lot less into mass murder. The invasion moved quickly. Pol Pot's government collapsed in just about 2 weeks, and Vietnam installed a puppet regime. To the Cambodian people, the Vietnamese were seen by some as liberators, and by others as occupiers. Given how horrifying Pol Pot's regime had been, much of the international community actually viewed the Vietnamese invasion as a kind of humanitarian intervention. Vietnam hoped this would earn them international recognition for the new Cambodian government, but that didn't happen. China was alarmed at the idea of Vietnam dominating former French Indochina, which would put a strong Soviet ally right on China's southern border. Meanwhile, the West opposed it for two main reasons. The first was that watching communist countries fight each other was always kind of amusing, and two, it would require them to acknowledge that Hanoi's communist government had done something good, which, after spending a decade fighting them, they obviously weren't going to do. After years of battling guerrilla resistance in Cambodia, the Cold War was winding down. Vietnam eventually announced it would pull out of Cambodia. The Cambodian government agreed to reform under UN supervision. A peace deal was signed. Some former political leaders were allowed to return. The monarchy was restored, and Cambodia reshaped itself. into the modern country we know today, one that still exists. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks for watching.